Hello, and welcome back to the Credit Genius U Credit Education Series. In this week's episode, we will discuss the difference between a transactor and a revolver. This video is mostly aimed at those of you who are currently trying to qualify for a home mortgage or are interested in being approved in the near future. Since the mortgage industry relies on our services so much, we thought this would be a nice piece of education that, unfortunately, most consumers don't get until they are in the process of trying to be approved for a home mortgage. By the time you get to that point, this information is coming to you far too late to do anything with, and you're stuck wishing you had known this months ago. So, what are we talking about when we say a transactor or a revolver? Great question. First, it's important to understand that your credit score is not the only important piece of credit data that mortgage companies review when they are considering qualifying you for a home mortgage. Another important piece of the puzzle is your actual payment history on all revolving accounts. And while making your payments on time is important, that's not what we're talking about. In 2017, the mortgage industry started looking at the month-by-month history of revolving lines through a brand new lens. This new way of reviewing the exact details of each revolving line on a month-by-month basis allows lenders to better determine your risk level when they are considering approving you for a home mortgage. Okay, so how does this new system work anyway? When you apply for a mortgage, an automated underwriting system reviews your revolving credit history and assigns you one of two labels. You are either labeled a transactor or a revolver. A transactor is someone who has a history of paying off all or at least the majority of the revolving debt each month. This is very common with small business owners or independent contractors because they need to use their credit cards for business expenses and then use the revenue from their work to pay off the balance at the end of each month. So in other words, a transactor is someone who is using revolving lines to handle specific transactions, and a part of that completed transaction allows them to pay off the debt at the end of each month. The second label is a revolver. A revolver is someone who adds to the revolving balances each month, but does not have the money to pay down the entire balance. So they end up paying it down slowly over time. The reason that lenders feel it's important to make this distinction is because research shows that a transactor is using revolving debt in a way that does not leave them holding debt over the long term. It is likely that they are in an overall better financial state, whereas a revolver is demonstrating that something happened in their life, and for whatever reason, they chose not to pay for the balance accrued, but rather create more debt, which they can also not afford to pay off quickly, and therefore the debt is paid off slowly over time. Regardless of what the reality might be here, lenders choose to process this from the point of view that you as a revolver are in a much worse financial situation, and therefore you pose a higher risk of default. So, if you're looking to buy a home in the near future, we recommend that you only handle your revolving accounts like a transactor would, so that you don't get turned down for that mortgage at application time. We have watched far too many applicants with great credit scores get turned down for this simple reason. Well, that's all for this week's episode. We will see you next week for another episode of the Credit Genius U Credit Education Series, where we will discuss, in detail, the dangers of co-signing on any financial transaction. Until then, thanks for watching, and remember that with a little bit of work and our help, you too can be a credit genius.